Welcome to the AI Talk Show, where we discuss the news, share insights, bring guests from the industry, take questions, and involve you in the conversation. AI is having an impact on our businesses, our lives, our society, and everything around us. As leaders in the industry, it's our responsibility to jump in and be a part of the discussion. So let's start the conversation. I'm your host, Asha Saxena, CEO, Women Leaders in Data and AI. In today's episode, we will discuss deepfake or synthetic media. Overall, generative AI market is expected to exceed 109 billion by 2030. I think we all have heard about that how fast this market is going to grow. It's going to grow approximately 35% a year on average until 2030. Content authenticity is going to become a major problem for our society as a whole. There are face swapping technologies and apps like Reface, which people are using now. We are entering into the age of cheap fake. We see a lot of images. If you remember the video that came out, Tom Cruise acting up, let me show you that video.
What's up, TikTok?
All year long, Deep Tom Cruise has been posting videos showing what appears to be a different side of the Oscar-nominated actor.
I think there's bubblegum inside this.
People are surprised that I'm a big Dave Matthews guy.
But believe it or not, that's most definitely not Tom Cruise.
So let's start the conversation about deepfake or synthetic media and what it can cause, the good and bad. Let me welcome my guest today, Besa Bauta, who's a leader in the industry. She spent close to 30 years in federal, state, healthcare, and academia. So Besa, welcome.
Pleasure to be here along with your audience to talk about everything related to AI and what's coming new in the market, as well as how it's impacting our lives.
You know, Besa, listen, there are so many great use cases and everybody's talking about generative AI. But also, a lot of times when I speak at conferences on the stage, people are coming to me and talking about deepfake. And I think deepfake is something which everybody's concerned about. If you're in technology or not in technology, what is real and what is fake is now a question. Are you worried about that, and what worries you?
I mean, absolutely. It's a misrepresentation of myself, or what I would say. My image is a public image. I'm there in the public domain. There's a lot of information out there for me. So it's really easy to take content that's available in the World Wide Web and take that content and create another digital version of me. Something that's really not authentic to me and can misrepresent my thoughts, my views, my actions. And it's a concern for a lot of the individuals, especially in the public domain. With high visibility comes the chance, as you mentioned, with Tom Cruise, along with a lot of the public leaders that presented. And that can have multiple ramifications, not only for their platform, brand, as well as ramifications for society and culture as a whole.
They say when there is a problem, there is also a solution. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs jump right in when they see an opportunity like that, where there is a trouble. A company when I was doing the research on deepfake, the company that stood out for me was the Optics. And they help identify synthetic or spoof material, like an airport X-ray machine for digital content, really figure out if it's true or not. And I think there's also technologies like watermarking the images that is now becoming more popular. So I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are jumping right in to create these technologies that can detect. But I feel like it's a mouse and cat game. Like, what do you do? Like, you're creating the technology and then you have to go out and figure out the solution for it. But always you see that you're trying to catch up to these technologies, because these technologies are like coming out. It's sometimes playful. It's a playful act, but really it can cause a lot of damage.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest thing, is that, every good intention has unintended consequences. So it's really hard to figure out, sometimes it's a joke, but the joke can go out of hand if it's, different contexts can be misrepresented. I think you raise an important point as far as the companies that are coming out and providing authentication approaches to identify not only synthetic data or deep fakes or any sort of products that are put out in there in the market that are used in that way. The issue with that is that we always come up with a solution, but as you kind of preluded to that, is that we really don't have a good way to address deepfakes. Our regulatory statutes have not caught up. Our ethical statutes have not caught up. We really don't even have regulatory guardrails with a lot of these technologies. And this is sort of at the cutting edge as well, with a lot of the media out there that really the technology is one part, but the regulatory part is another component. So both of them have a lot of catch up to do, some more than others. I don't always see technology, sort of authentication application as a be all and end all. They have to be within an ecosystem and environment that could say, yes, either through watermarking or other types of credentialing that says, yes, this is a valid document, this is a valid image. And that has a lot of development that needs to happen in the next few years.
I feel like we were all thrown a curveball with generative AI, the chat GPT, and suddenly all these models are getting built because there is so many use cases that's coming up now. I also saw, a couple of companies that stood out for me as I was looking at what are the solutions. There's deepfake detection by Sensity AI. There is plagiarism detection by fictitious AI, and there's also another plagiarism that came out is originality.ai. And I think you're right that even though these companies and the entrepreneurs are building solution, it'll take time to catch up to it. As you were talking about the regulation, I think what strikes to me, Besa, is that people sitting in Congress might not be technology savvy. And I think that's why it's so important that the federal government or the state government is getting technologists involved to make sure that they're taking their input in creating the regulations. Your thoughts on that?
So I think there's a lot of lack in translation. I mean, we have this sort of, all of us have like a tech speak or, heavily, especially technology is jargon laden across the board. So transferring, simple concepts and knowledge to the lay person, the congressman or the senator, there's really not a technology. It's really hard to do. So I like your idea of bringing in technologies that have a vetted interest and also embedding them into these processes that are either legal processes or ethical processes to develop those guardrails. And the sooner that we do this, the better, because as you say, the Greyhound is already running or the train is out of the gate, whatever euphemism you want to use, that we're getting so far ahead that the technologies are accelerating at an exponential rate, but our privacy, our confidentiality, our consent processes have not caught up. They're not, I don't even have them included in my own policies, IT policies. So we have included a lot of, what we mean by privacy and confidentiality with HIPAA, high tech, all of those regulations, GDPR, but none of those regulations have included any of this new content with AI generation. So there's a huge gap from where the technology is and where it's moving towards and where the regulatory and ethical standards and guardrails are currently, which are, there's a huge widening gap.
You talk about these guardrails, and I think a lot of the leaders in the industries are concerned about it, and they're talking about these guardrails. And I think something which we actively are working on and looking forward to. But something which I feel like is exciting is that when there is technology and when we have new innovations coming out, there's always going to be good and bad. Of course, we get concerned about the bad, but I get excited about the good too. When you think about deepfakes and the implication of deepfake, and I'm one example which I heard was the education, and how can we can educate our children with history. Hamilton, the Broadway show, became really popular because it used the music lyrics what kids understood. It was the whole hip hop style of Hamilton display of history. And really, I remember sitting in the theater and somebody behind me was saying, I wish we were taught history like this and we would learn it much faster. And I thought that was such a great analogy or mention this kid behind me, was mentioning. And I think that we could make it fun. When we talk about deep fake, we could make history fun and how we learn about history fun, or even think about historical speeches. And we made it, come alive for the kids to learn from. So I think I'm excited about the education piece. What are you thinking about? If you think about positive use case, what would you think about?
I mean, I like the whole idea of as far as using these technologies to educate and actually bring content to life. One of the really interesting things I saw recently was sort of like Greek and Roman statues doing like modern hip hop dance. I thought that was really fascinating. I'm like, well, I've never seen that content that way. And I could see how that can be really engaging for the next generation, that they're able to interact with content in a very different way than when I was growing up. I think for me, it was very much more imaginative, and sort of having imagination come to life for the next generations. I think that's a really exciting, aspect. But I always have to kind of weigh the positives and negatives. There's a lot of positives out there. I think with any new technology, you never know where we're going to be the next 10 or 20 years. Having a digital image of myself or yourself kind of for posterity's sake and digitized or, come to life in, long after I'm passed. I think that's kind of an interesting concept to think about. On the other side, I always think about, who owns that image and concept, and what can, this likeness, what I look like can be used in the future, and how is that being used? But I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities out there with this technology. Even creation of whole new content or, shows out there that are 100% digital. We're taking, I saw a recent thing that my daughter showed me with a Balenciaga sort of brand, and taking concepts like Harry Potter and kind of mashing them together and creating really novel new, content that really comes to life. I think all of this is, prime for not only creativity, but how it gets used in education as well as industry.
When you were talking about what would it look like when we are gone, I was thinking, imagine leaving our videos or making the images where you're telling stories to your grandkids. That could be fun. So yes, you're right. Like so many great fun use cases could come up. And listen, when we are talking to businesses, businesses would ask, what is a use case we can use for AI? Everybody wants AI to be part of their business now. I think the deep fakes could be a great use case. Could be if you're translating something in different languages. If you have a speech from a CEO, you're doing a town hall, you can convert that into 10 different languages to make it easy and communicate it with different audience. Or it could be in any shape or form where you're trying to communicate to different audience. But also in politics, I think it could be used. Especially if you're a protester or you're trying to hide. Some kind of a in a country, you live in a country where there is no freedom of speech. Deep fakes could really make your voice heard.
I mean, I could see that both. I mean, I like the idea of being able to, provide speeches in multiple languages. I would love to be able to do that, like Cantonese or Mandarin, where I'm talking in English, and then, it's like a perfect pronunciation in another language, makes it much more relatable. I mean, that is definitely an interesting use case. I really hadn't thought about sort of using deep fakes as a way to mask an individual, where you're able to convey the message, but your image is being masked. Right. I think there is opportunities, and I know that people will, when there is a will, there is a way. That people will find multiple different types of opportunities to use this technology. And right now we're seeing that a lot in the media, where you have public figures either as a joke or some other ways telling a different personality or aspect of them being shown, more in a comedic effect. And it's interesting to see how all of this is going to play out in the next 5 or 10 years, and where the technology will lead us and how this is going to be used.
I tell you, Besa, every time I'm talking to you, I could probably talk to you for hours. But because we have to close the show, deep fake and synthetic media is something which is really interesting, and how businesses can use it for their purposes or engage with their audiences is a good question. But I think businesses need to get more creative now to understand how they're going to use AI in their day-to-day functions, and how they create produce, supply their products, or engage with their consumer internally or externally. I have to say there's a lot more opportunities for AI in business and in technology. As technology leaders, as business leaders, we just need to become more curious, be open to using AI and understanding where they can get the most value from using AI. Please share your thoughts and concerns. If you are interested in any other topic which you think we should cover, please send me a message on LinkedIn or share your comments. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward for bringing you more thought-provoking discussion, cutting-edge news, and expert insights on our next episode. Please go to LinkedIn to start a conversation. We air weekly on Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm your host, Asha Saxena, and this is the AI Talk Show. See you next time.